In a world filled with information, where do you turn to get straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Lock it in to the longest running financial talk show in Arkansas, and let us help you build the bridge between information and application. Real financial change begins right here, and it starts with you.
It's showtime! Woo!
On today's Get Ready for the Future show, the OJs said it best. Some people got to have it, some people really need it. You can do good things or bad things with it. We're talking your money and your family, and we start right now.
This is the Get Ready for the Future show.
And welcome into the Get Ready for the Future show. It is kind of a throwback show today, Janet.
Yeah, we're going old school today for sure.
Yeah, we got people, scattered everywhere these days. And for whatever reason, we look up and it's John and Janet on the radio.
Yeah, and I don't think that we've done a John and Janet only show for, frankly, several years.
It's been a while. Been a while.
But for those of you who are relatively new to the Get Ready for the Future show, this is the way it started. Was just John and Janet, and so here we are again.
So let's go back in time, since we're going back in time on the Get Ready for the Future show as far as the John and Janet thing is concerned. Let's go back in time a little bit and talk about one of my family's favorite movies. Not one of my favorite movies, but I get forced into watching this on a fairly regular basis.
Yeah, when you mentioned the name of it, I was like, that doesn't really seem like a John movie, but we're talking about Dirty Dancing.
Yeah. So do you remember the famous line from Dirty Dancing?
Nobody puts baby in a corner.
That's right. And the connection to today's show is nobody puts money in a corner. I know there are a lot of people who do some mental accounting almost, and they think about money as being this kind of separate or side issue from everything else that's going on in their life. And a lot of people, Janet, don't even have conversations about money amongst their family. It's like not Dirty Dancing, it's the dirty secret.
Yeah. I mean, I love what Dave Ramsey says. He's like, we grew up thinking that our parents didn't have any money and they didn't have any sex because they didn't talk about either one of them, and it turns out they had both. And the reality is that people need to talk about money. Finances are a very important part of our lives. Really, almost everything that you do that is really important to you. I mean, think about things like vacation. You go on a vacation not because of the cost or whatever. That's not what makes it important, but you go on vacation because of that time with your family. But when you think about it, you couldn't have that focused time with your family if it were not for the financial ability to pay for it. So money helps you do the things that are important to you.
Money is inextricably connected to your life.
Yeah.
A lot of people like to put money over here, and we got our life over here, and we'll be quiet and deal with the money over here, and then we'll just go live life. Mm-hmm. But I think that we have found over our years and decades of doing what we do for a living that money is really one of those things that is just interwoven throughout your life, because the things, as Janet mentioned, that you want and need to do really all kind of go back to money. I know that there are a lot of people that love to talk about money, and there are those that don't like to talk about it. But I think it's one of those things that you just can't separate.
Well, and this is the importance of having a written plan, because when you think about all of the areas of your life that money touches, if you don't plan for those areas and for how you're going to utilize your money in those situations, then you're not prepared for it. You're not prepared to do those things as well as you would like to do them. So money touches really every aspect of your family. And John, one of the things we're going to talk about today as far as family and money is the sandwich generation. I'm still a part of what we call the sandwich generation, where we have aging parents and we have young children. And so we're kind of in the middle, helping in both directions generationally. And sometimes that's financially helping, and sometimes it is with time, but there's still a need to help And sometimes even that time drain, even if it's not a measurable financial drain, sometimes that time drain might cause you to miss work and therefore have a financial impact. So it does, in most families, have a financial impact for you.
You're right. And I'm on the other side of that, Jen.
Yeah.
Both my parents are gone and both my kids are grown. And so you don't have that pull or that conflict in our family of, I got to do this with my parents and I've got it. Now, my wife does. Debbie still has her parents and they're in pretty good shape. And so they don't require a lot of care or anything. But if it's one of those things, I think that if you knew now or knew then what you know now, you might behave differently. And so one of the things that we are fond of doing at Gen Wealth is helping you to understand some of those things that we have learned through the years and that we have observed through the years in other people's situation that deal with money and how you might think about it. Because if somebody else has already kind of worn out that path and you really kind of know where all the rocks are on that path, it's probably pretty good for you to know where those rocks are if you're coming in behind them. And I think one of the things is in the family that if you think about dealing with that sandwich generation thing, you might, if you knew early on what you may be experiencing right now, you might have planned differently.
John, the statistics on this really kind of blow my mind. As of 2020, more than 1 in 5 Americans, don't even mess with the number of how many millions this is, but think about this statistically, 1 in 5 Americans is dealing with either caring for an adult loved one or a child with special needs. So when you think about the significance of that number, I mean, that has a massive impact on a family's ability to bring in income and frankly also to not have to use too much income in the care of that particular family member.
And that spread there is actually growing. It was up from about 43 million to over 50 million as early as 2015.
Well, and I think that a significant part of that is likely the aging of the baby boomer generation. That number is going to continue to grow for a period of time as the baby boomers continue to age.
Yeah, and so on today's show, we're really talking about family values. We started the show off talking about this is about your family and your money. And so we're going to dive deep into that and find out more about the things that you need to know as far as how money is interwoven with your life. And one of the things that we'll talk about is retirement. A lot of times people are in a situation where they are living life and they kick the can down the road in retirement. We see that all the time where people come in going, I started late. I wasn't really, the guy that I needed to be as far as my 401k is concerned. And now I've got problems.
One of the things that I've noticed as a parent, and it took me way too long to figure this out, but my children need deadlines on everything.
Yes.
I don't care what it is. It is do your laundry by Sunday at 3:00 or, whatever it is. If they have a deadline, they will get it done. But in the absence of a deadline, there's no requirement to do it. And retirement, I think we as adults need to give ourselves some deadlines that I will have a plan in place by this date. I will, go ahead and pick your retirement date. I've done that, and it's not that I'm inflexible on it. I can adjust that if I want to, but at least I have a target date, and that is a basis for the beginnings of a very specific plan.
Yeah, and you've got to have that plan if you're really going to overcome some of the challenges that you have in this interrelationship with your money and your family. Now, Janet, speaking of family, we're going to take a little bit of time in the next segment to talk about a new family relationship that we've got here at Gen Wealth. And it is really one of the things that we would call a partnership. We are working with one of the larger investment firms to bring you a brand new offering as a part of our Ready to Retire process. So we're going to be talking with a guest from Wisdom Tree Investments to explain a little bit about how their firm is working with Gen Wealth to help you reach your financial goals. We'll cover that, plus we'll get back into the discussion about your money and your family as we continue on. We want to welcome those folks that are watching on Facebook Live and also welcome those folks that are on radio. This is the Get Ready for the Future show. We're back in just a couple of minutes. Stay with us. At GenWealth, one of our standards is we believe in balance, and it's really a twofold standard. For our team, we believe that you've got to work and you've got to do things the right way, but you also have to have some time off, and you can't do your job if your job is all you do. For our clients, we believe in balance because their investment portfolios need to take as much risk as they need to achieve their goals, but not so much risk that they lose everything that they've got. Balance is incredibly important in both our team and for our clients.
There's always been power in standing up for what you believe in, challenging the status quo, and never accepting the ordinary. What about the rest of your life? Will you settle? Or will your retirement be more? More fun, more family than finances, more than just investments. Connect with us at GenWealth and harness the power of more.
You ain't heard nothing yet. Buckle up, because we're back with the Get Ready for the Future show.
At GenWealth Financial Advisors, we are always looking for ways that we can improve our offerings to you as you try to improve your financial life. And today we're really excited to announce a new partnership that is specifically designed to enhance our income for life model and the GenWealth Ready to Retire process. Beginning next week, GenWealth will be working with and have available investments from Wisdom Tree and family of exchange-traded funds, or ETFs. Now, you may not know who Wisdom Tree is. You may have seen their commercials on TV, but we're going to dive into a little bit about Wisdom Tree. Janet, Wisdom Tree is providing us these models, as I mentioned, as part of the Income for Life model and the Ready to Retire process here at GenWealth. But what all that means is that we've got some things that are very specific to those folks that are ready to retire.
Yeah, one of the features of, just ETFs in general is that we're looking at the lower cost on this. I know that that's important to a lot of consumers, so that's something that we're excited about. But our investment team here at GenWealth has been working with the analyst at Wisdom Tree to design these specific portfolios with the idea of better controlling really the desired outcomes that we have in our bucketing strategy that we use in the Income for Life model for our retirement income planning. So we're pretty excited about where this is going.
So Wisdom Tree manages about $63 billion in assets as of August 18th of this year, and they do so through those low-cost ETFs that Janet was mentioning. And on the phone with us is Tom Scrobe, who is the head of product solutions for Wisdom Tree. He's joining us here on the Get Ready for the Future show to talk a little bit about our new relationship. Tom, welcome.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. First, let's dive in and talk a little bit about a process that you guys have at Wisdom Tree called Modern Alpha. What is Modern Alpha?
Sure. In comparison to traditional passive investing, active management often carries higher cost, less transparency in your portfolio, and the risk of human judgment. But it can also mean an outperformance potential. So what we tried to do with Modern Alpha, we wanted to combine the positives of passive and active investment approaches to enhance the overall investment experience. So it's the best of passive, the best of active for a superior investment experience for your clients.
So, Tom, we're all about outcomes when it comes to helping people retire because we know that there's no do-over in retirement. Let's explore a little bit about the benefits that you guys have seen from this process of Modern Alpha.
Absolutely. The benefits of Modern Alpha, and keep in mind, you mentioned this earlier in this discussion, that we're an ETF-only provider. We feel that the ETF is a superior structure than mutual funds and any other vehicle. And our Modern Alpha approach helps investors enhance their portfolio returns, increase dividend income, which is extremely important in the income for life model, and reduce portfolio volatility and risk at a reasonable cost. And we are a lower cost provider, and with our modern alpha approach, you get the benefits I just reviewed with you, and you get it in a very risk controlled and transparent way. So all the holdings are transparent every day, so that the clients know what they own within the ETF structure.
Guys, I want to take just a moment to help our listeners out. We're pretty focused on being sure that we're not just throwing around industry jargon without them understanding what those words are, because everybody comes to this from a different background. So for our listeners who may not be familiar with the term alpha, that is really just the ability to beat the market. It is excess return beyond the market. That's how that is used in our industry. So that's kind of where that name comes from here. Tom, help our listeners to understand how your team has really embrace the concepts of bucketing or segmenting as it relates to the income for life model that we use here at GenWealth.
Absolutely. We're strong believers in the income for life model. We're strong believers that the bucketing strategy is the best strategy for retirees, because you're trying to accomplish two things. You're trying to generate income in retirement, but you also want to have a plan where you don't outlive your money. And when we learned about the income for life strategy, we were thrilled to be a part of it. And we built model portfolios specifically for that model. So the models that will be available on the platform are tailor-made for the life model, where there are three models. One helps you generate income today. Second model is a little more forward-looking and help you generate income a little further in the future. But the last model is a model that allows the client to stay invested in the market with the ability to generate future income. And our modern alpha approach is great for that, because it's heavily focused on dividend investing. It also allows you to stay invested in the market, get invested in stocks, but also generate income along the way. So I strongly believe, WisdomTree strongly believes, that this is the best strategy for retirees in balancing that equation of income today and income in the future.
And I'll make a comment here, Janet. Forever here at GenWealth, we have been big believers in dividends.
Yes.
Now, dividends are a share of the corporate profits that a company passes along to its shareholders, and you get those through mutual funds and ETFs and things of that nature. But we like dividends because one of the things that I was taught very, very early on in my career is that a dividend actually pays you while you're waiting for that stock price to go up.
Right.
And when you think about the volatility that we're in right now, and the volatility that has been in the market for a long period of time, there are some ups and downs that you sometimes from point A to point B don't get anywhere. There's a lot of activity, a lot of heat, but not a lot of light, so to speak.
Right.
A dividend actually pays you or compensates you for some of the risk that you're taking on that while you're waiting on that stock price to advance. And so it was a beautiful relationship that came together with WisdomTree and their philosophy on dividend investing and our philosophy on dividend investing as well.
Tom, let's talk a little bit about the WisdomTree family overall. At last count, WisdomTree boasts 19 4-star and 5 5-star ETFs as rated by Morningstar. What's the formula behind having that many winners?
I think the formula is pretty straightforward. It's consistent, risk-controlled returns. So since the founding of the firm, we're strong believers in transparency, and also, as you mentioned, beating the traditional benchmarks such as the S&P 500. So our approach, our modern alpha approach, allows us to do that in a very risk-controlled and consistent way. And the way you earn stars, for Morningstar, 4 or 5-star funds, is exactly that. So if you look at our returns across our family, you'll see consistency of process, consistency of the people that are responsible for the process, and the returns that have been generated over the past 10 years have been better than the traditional benchmarks in the marketplace.
Tom, one of the things that I often tell our investors is that, look, if you control risk, if you don't go down as far as the market does when you have a downturn, you don't have to work as hard to make outperformance on the upside. Is that really the basis of some of the philosophy that you guys follow?
Absolutely. A significant downturn, a significant underperformance, it's, you want to lose less and stay invested. So our overall philosophy, especially on the dividend suite, and we manage dividend products, across a variety of different products around the world. And dividends are not just, large companies. Dividends are generated by smaller companies and also companies in different markets, such as emerging markets and internationally. So our goal is to have consistent returns and not have significant drawdowns in our products, because, as you mentioned, if you lose a considerable amount of capital or money in a short period of time, it is hard to make that back up, and it could take years. So our goal is to have this risk-controlled approach, very transparent, at a reasonable cost. So as I mentioned, Modern Alpha gives you those benefits, gives you the ability to generate excess return, protects you on the downside, generate dividend income at a reasonable cost.
Joining us on the Get Ready for the Future show is Tom Skrobe. And the reason Tom is on the line with us is that he is part of the Wisdom Tree family of ETFs. And we've just formed a new partnership with Wisdom Tree to include them as some of the selections that our advisors have on the Income for Life model and the Ready to Retire process.
And let me be very clear. We always want to do this from a compliance standpoint. We're talking about one product family that
right.
we utilize. We're not in any way saying, hey, go get this. Because the reality is, for you as a listener to the show today, we don't have any idea what your individual financial situation is and what your needs are, which underscores the need for you to meet with an advisor to spend some time getting together a personalized plan, which, if you're at the point of retirement, may include this as part of your plan. Absolutely.
Tom, we've got a couple of minutes left. I want to touch on the fact that you've got a rock star of the investment world on your team, Dr. Jeremy Siegel, as your senior investment strategy advisor. Tell us a little bit about Dr. Siegel and his background and his influence on your company.
Sure. Professor Siegel has been a great influence on Wisdom Tree, but I think more importantly has been a tremendous influence on financial advisors and investors for a very long time. He's the leading, I would say, finance and economics professor in the country at the Wharton School. And he validated our initial research about 20 years ago when the firm was founded. So when the firm was founded, we had this thought that we could build products to beat the traditional benchmarks, and we call that Modern Alpha. But we wanted a leading academic to validate that, and he did. And he's been closely associated with Wisdom Tree for many, many years. I think what's really special about Professor Siegel, he definitely helps us drive our investment process and influences our investment process day in and day out. But he also is very influential in helping clients stay invested for the long run. And he has a book, Stocks for the Long Run, and the benefits of staying invested for the long run and not making short-term decisions, because those short-term decisions could have detrimental effects to your overall plan. So Professor Siegel is amazing for us, but he's also, readily available to speak with clients. He does it all the time with us. You can see him on different TV shows. He's very well known in the financial world and the financial media, and we're just thrilled that he's part of our firm and thrilled to be working closely with you all in driving the Income for Life model.
All right, Tom, I know you're busy. We appreciate the time that you spent with us on the Get Ready for the Future show, and we will be talking with you very soon.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Janet. Pleasure to be on the show, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Absolutely. Tom Skrobe, one of the key players at Wisdom Tree. And Wisdom Tree is one of the many portfolios that your advisors here at GenWealth will have the discretion to use when you become a GenWealth client. But as Janet mentioned, you want to be sure to plug in on that and understand the dynamics of that and how it fits inside your overall investment program. We're back on the Get Ready for the Future show with Family Values in just a moment.
At GenWealth, one of our standards is that we value good communication. One of my favorite quotes about good communication is from George Bernard Shaw. He said, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place. If you ever doubt that, Come to my house, listen to my 16-year-old son and my 13-year-old daughter having a conversation, and see what happens, because they will walk away with completely different understandings of the conversation that has occurred. It happens every time. It's okay, they're still learning communication. But here at Gen Wealth, we believe that that's something you need to experience every time you walk in our door, that you need to feel understood, that you need to feel listened to. So you'll see a change in how we're even communicating. If you're talking about something that's very serious, very personal, you'll even hear a change in our tone of voice, because that's just how good communication is supposed to be. But it also means that we can feed back to you what you've shared with us, just so you know that we're listening. We value good communication.
From the Gen Wealth Radio Network studios, we're back with more of the Get Ready for the Future show.
John Shrewsbury, Janet Walker on the Get Ready for the Future show, kind of going back to the old school days of when we used to do this by ourselves. We somehow have landed on the day that it was you and I that were available to do the show. And so here we go again.
Yeah, it has been many years since it was just the two of us in here, but I think we can still do this.
Yeah, I think so. And I want to go back and use kind of a throwback phrase. You know, for years we have talked on this show about giving you straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money. So here we go. We're going to jump in on the family values issue and talk to you very, very straight about this whole idea of the conflict that is out there, I would say, between trying to get your kids to college and saving for retirement.
You know, before we dive into this, I want to go back to something that Tom said in just a moment ago. He talked about Dr. Siegel's influence. He talked about the short-term decisions that investors make that have a long-term impact. And I know really what he was talking about is how people react to what might be going on in the market at any given point, and they make a decision based on that time period, and it really does have a tremendous long-term impact for them. But the same concept is true about decisions about college planning. You know, we're looking, and I got to say, I've got a senior in high school. Wow, y'all pray for this mama. I'm just saying. Okay. So anyway.
Actually, you need to probably pray for her business partner, because I have to
pray for my son.
Well, yeah, that too. But I sometimes catch the overflow of emotion that goes on with this.
Anyway, the point is that we as parents, we have this whole college deal looming right in front of us, and it doesn't matter if your kid is a senior or in kindergarten. At some point you're going, oh my gosh, college, and oh my gosh, it's expensive, and you feel this, frankly, obligation to pay for your child's college. Maybe your parents paid for yours and you want to do the same, or maybe they didn't and you don't want your child to have that burden. People get very emotional about paying for college. You can't be emotional about your money and make a wise decision. That's the key on this. I'm not saying don't pay for it, but here's the key. Most of you are going to be in a position where you have to choose to either fund college or fund retirement, or maybe fund one of them and partially fund the other. Many families are not in a position, especially with multiple children, they're not in a position to fully fund retirement and fully fund college. And that is okay. We've got to give ourselves permission to be human. And frankly, if your child doesn't get college paid for by mom and dad, there are scholarships, there are grants, and I know that you don't want them to have the burden of student loans, but they do exist as an option. And frankly, they may not even need to go to college. If they need to be a plumber, let them be a plumber. Whatever the case may be, we need people with those skill sets. But the reality is when you get to retirement, there are no scholarships or grants or loans. So if your retirement is underfunded because you took care of your kid's college education, I hope that kid really loves you because you're going to be moving in with them in retirement. That's not the option you want to take, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody is going to save for your retirement but you.
That's
Used
right.
to be that your employer had a pension and they put money back for your retirement. They took care of you. Those things don't exist hardly anymore. The number of pensions that are out there if you work in the private sector as opposed to the public sector are slim and none. So nobody's going to fund your retirement but you. Even a match on a 401k plan usually requires you to contribute in order to get some form of match. So you've got to have a priority, and it is not selfish if you are funding your retirement as opposed to funding your kids' education, because as Janet said, you're going to be broke in retirement and living on your kids if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, and we have seen that happen, and we've seen, when we've done plans for people, we've seen where that would have been the reality had the family not gotten a plan together and altered their course. And so let me just say, it's not the end of the world for your child if you don't pay for everything for them as far as college is concerned.
But I think you've touched on a point, Janet, that is incredibly important here. You've got to have a plan, and you don't really know whether you can fund both or have to let one go by the wayside or whatever the case may be until you sit down and count the cost. You've got to sit down and look at what it is that you're trying to do, especially if you are a young family. There is the time value of money that we've talked about over several episodes here on the Get Ready for the Future show that can give you actually a big head start if you start early on trying to save for retirement. I go back to the example that we used several shows ago, Janet, where we had the two guys, and I don't even remember the names that we ascribed to them, but we had
Mike and Larry.
Yeah. So Mike saved a bunch of money between age 20 and age 28 or something like that, and then stopped, didn't save any more, and he had almost as much as Larry did when he started saving at age 28 and saved all the way to 60. And it's incredible, the power of compound interest, and you've got to understand how to take advantage of that, and the way you do that is with a plan.
That's absolutely right, and I think that it's so critical to really just get a snapshot of where you are in terms of college planning, where you are in terms of retirement planning, and then you can make a well-educated decision. I think that people just very frequently just throw money at it, and you also, I think, really have to pay attention to your children and what they're wired to do. The Bible talks about training up a child in the way that they should go. And to be honest, when I was raised, that meant, parents, you better beat your children. That's the way we kind of translated that one. But what it really means is to raise a child according to their natural bent. If your child's natural bent is not for college, that's okay. I have two completely different children, but they are both college bound. One wants to be an engineer, which requires a piece of paper, and the other one has kind of varied on a teacher or anything else working in a school, which is probably still going to require a piece of paper. But they're also two very different degrees, and so one will probably go locally to college where the other one will not. It's okay for them to have different paths.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here's where you really get a tempest in the teapot in this. It's hard enough to try to balance college and retirement and all of that, and maybe try to fund both of them if you can. Mm-hmm. But when you have a family member, particularly a child, who is also stricken with a chronic illness,
yes,
that really becomes a bigger drain on your finances, that if you don't have things like emergency funds and ready cash available to take care of things that insurance doesn't cover, then you run into real problems.
John, you and I have both dealt with medical challenges in our families, and medical challenges for a prolonged period of time become financial challenges. That's just the way that works. And so regardless of who it is, we've talked about whether it's a child, but whether it's a child or whether it's an adult, it has that financial impact for you when you have those medical challenges in life. So again, it is so important to get a personalized plan, because your neighbor next door may be going, you need to put money back for your kid's college. Well, if you're just surviving because of medical bills, then your answer is different than your neighbor's is, and that's okay. So again, it goes back to get a personalized plan in place for you that works for your family, and it doesn't have to be the same as everybody else's. It is, frankly, John, as unique as your fingerprint.
It absolutely is, and that's why you need to plan, Janet, because you don't know what you don't know. Let's put it this way. You don't know how much you need to be saving to create the income that you need in retirement unless you sit down and actually do the math on that. Work with an advisor that's very skilled at helping people to accumulate dollars toward that goal. And also, you really don't know what college is going to cost, because let's dive into this from two different directions. One is you got to have a database of what college is going to cost and then inflate it at an inflation rate to try to hit that moving target of rising college cost. That's one thing. But the other thing is that oftentimes people think that well, I'm going to send my kid to a prestigious college because they'll get a better education if they go to Harvard or Stanford as opposed to go to UCA or a community college.
I will tell you, as an employer, a piece of paper is a piece of paper. A diploma is a diploma. A graduate is a graduate. And, we really don't look at, prestigious versus not. And I would just encourage you to make a wise decision, even about the first couple of years. My husband went to a community college for the first couple of years and then went to a university after that. But he got those basics out of the way in a far less expensive way than he would have otherwise. And my daughter is actually, I don't know if this will happen because she's still young, but she has started the process to potentially have her associate's degree when she graduates from high school, because she can take concurrent courses.
Right.
That's another way to really greatly reduce the overall cost of college. There are more and more schools offering that, and you get that dual credit. So I'm thinking, if you're going to do biology, let's do biology once and get credit for it twice.
So I want to make sure that our viewers and our listeners caught that. So in your family, Bethany is going to be able to take enough concurrent courses that she's going to knock out 2 years of college,
yes,
because she will have her associate's degree when she graduates high school.
Yes, and there are more and more schools doing that. Ask about it. I am a big fan of that as compared to like AP classes, and I took AP classes because that was all that was available instead of the concurrent, but everything then rides on that test for you in the AP class. But with concurrent, if you do the work throughout the course, you get the grade that you get, and you get high school credit, and you get college credit, and it's done and behind you. Now, you do need to be aware of where you're going with that and whether it would be accepted at the university that your child wants to attend. But hers is through. It just happens that hers is through ASU. So really, we're pretty good inside the state of Arkansas.
So let's talk about what the impediment is to this for just a second. The impediment really is the hardship that you have on yourself in making hard decisions.
Yeah.
You've got to make hard decisions about things, and you've got to be intentional about it in order to get down the road on this.
We have, as a family, you talk about being intentional, we have as a family done a ton of planning for college, and we went to somebody who is a professional in this arena. Yes, I deal with financial things all the time, but not with college. And so we've gone to a coach now for 4 years for my son. This is, as I said, his senior year, so we're in the 4th year with him. And she has really helped us a tremendous amount to go through this process. He's already gotten one acceptance letter. We're working on some other ones. It's been very valuable to us.
Catch that. Even great financial advisors have a coach in some areas of their life. Even great athletes have a coach. The question is, who's your coach in your family matters when it comes to money? Give us a call, 501-653-7355. We would love to be your coach on wherever you may be going with your family and your finances. We're going to continue the discussion of family matters about your money on the Get Ready for the Future show next.
The beauty of a potter's work is that each item is unique. No piece is the same. That's what makes it art. At Gen Wealth, we believe your financial plan should be unique to you. Through our process, your money is carefully shaped around your goals and dreams. Your future, artfully crafted. Call us today or visit our website and connect with us. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors.
I don't think it's any coincidence that the Bible says, fear not, 365 times, one for every day of the year. At Gen Wealth, one of our standards is that we do not fear. We don't fear market downturns because we know that they're going to happen. We just simply plan for those things to happen and work around them. It's one of the things that we believe very earnestly, that you should never fear what you don't understand. You simply find a way to understand it and find a way to use it to your advantage. It's one of the Gen Wealth standards.
Want more straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Listen to our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Now back to the Get Ready for the Future show.
We've got advisors all across the state of Arkansas and in northern Louisiana that are ready to help you take on the issues that you have with retirement, investments, and your money. All you have to do is make a simple phone call, 501-653-7355. That's 501-653-7355. Now, you may sit there and go, well, I don't know what that is all involved, and I don't know what that costs or anything like that. Let me tell you that it will cost you way more to not do it than to do it. The things that we talk about on this show on a daily basis, Janet, are really things about your family and your life, because money and life are just tied together, and you cannot separate the two. And so as we dive into this, we've been talking about college education and the conflict it has with saving for retirement. But let's talk about what happens on the other side of the spectrum when you're having to deal with elderly parents, especially if the care for those elderly parents interrupts the cash flow of money.
So this goes back to, we talked about earlier the sandwich generation, and for college kids, if they don't have it paid for when they get to college, then there are other options. But for your parents, if they have not saved to be able to handle their care at this point, then that does fall to the family to step in. And if they don't have long-term care coverage of some type in place, again, that falls to the family to be able to step in and help financially. It can be a tremendous burden, but you've got to look at what your options are in this situation. And frankly, if your parents are not too old yet to get this in place, I would begin to talk to your parents about getting some type of long-term care coverage in place, because you know what this future looks like. And so if they can get something in place to be able to ease the burden later on, then that's an important thing to look at.
One of the easiest conversations that we have with people when it comes to this issue of long-term care insurance for themselves are people who have gone through a long-term care episode with their parents who were unprepared for it, and they're going, that's not going to happen to me.
I want coverage.
We got to get coverage in place because I know what we went through with mom or dad or whatever the case may be.
One of the impediments, I think, many times to looking at long-term care coverage even is the fear of how much it's going to cost. And let me just say, it doesn't have to cost as much as you might think, and it doesn't have to work the way you might think. I'm going to do a comparison between old school long-term care policies and something that is available now. My mom has a traditional long-term care policy because at the time that she got her coverage, that was really all that was out there. It's with a good, solid company. We're very glad that she has it. But there are some drawbacks compared to what is now available. So, number one, her policy, because it is a traditional policy, it is a reimbursement policy. And so if she ever has some type of event that the policy would cover, then we'll pay for it, and then we'll have to fill out all the forms like you do on other insurance stuff and get that reimbursement. So it'll happen, but it's a little bit of an inconvenience. Also, it is a long-term care event only, meaning that if she passes away from a heart attack without ever needing the long-term care benefit, then she will have paid in those premiums and not have the benefit from it. And so that's a drawback that a lot of people look at. One more thing on that is that long-term care policies just increase over the years periodically, and so her premiums have gone up a few times over the years. We are glad that she has the coverage, and it was the best thing available for her at the time. But you, as a consumer at this point, have other choices. So the way that the industry has changed these products is they've taken, one of the options that you have is to have a life insurance policy with a rider on it that will cover these types of needs. It can cover them in home. Hear that. It does not have to be in a nursing home, because everybody's like, I don't want to go to a nursing home, so I don't want that type of coverage. You don't have to go to a nursing home. The point of the policy is to be able to help you maintain your independence for as long as possible. Secondly, as compared to the reimbursement type of policy, as soon as you qualify for the coverage for the benefit to be paid out on this, then, and you do that by not being able to do 2 of the activities of daily living. So as soon as you qualify for that, they start sending you a check. It doesn't matter how you use it after you receive it. You could pay somebody to mow your yard. It just taking care of life is what they want you to do with it. The other thing is that it's a pool of money, John, and so if somebody passes away from a heart attack and they never need the long-term care amount, then they still get the full coverage benefit, but it's paid out as a death benefit through the life insurance. So you're not going to pay all the premiums and just not get anything out of the policy.
Man, there's so much to unpack there, Janet. When you think about, those types of policies are traditional long-term care policies, the number one objection that we hear from that is that they're costly, and I can't afford that. Well, I would ask, compared to what?
Yeah.
Because if you are going to have to quit work and care for an elderly parent, then that's very costly.
Yeah.
Think about all the money that you lose by stepping out of a job, stepping out of being able to contribute to your retirement program, maybe step out of being able to take advantage of employer-paid health insurance, all of those things, because you don't have any choice other than to go and take care of this elderly parent. Those costs are innumerable.
Really, what I encourage people to do on this is to make an intentional decision. If at the end of the day that you decide to self-insure and not get coverage otherwise, that's fine. But make an intentional decision. And in order to do that, you have to take the time to get a quote, go through the process to learn and understand it, and then say, yes, we want to do this, or no, we don't. But John, one of the other things that we look at for help as far as cost is concerned, if you can't insure both people as far as the husband and wife, then one of the options that a lot of people will consider is to get coverage on the wife. Now, This is a little bit of a gamble because we don't officially know who's going to live longer.
Playing the odds.
Yeah, we're playing the odds on this because we don't officially know who's going to live longer, but I like to joke that we ladies are never ready when it's time to go, so that's why we live longer than what the guys do. And so what typically happens is the wife will care for the husband when he has these medical issues going on, but then when he's gone, then somebody has to care for her. And that's where the policy really comes into play for a lot of families. There are males who use it, but it's very important. If you're making a cost decision, that's a consideration that you could think about.
Here's the empirical evidence. Walk down any hallway of any nursing home, and you're going to see way more women in that nursing home than you are men. Men are there, but there are way more women because women tend to last longer than men do. And us guys just kind of check out and go our own way, and all of that. We'll leave you guys here, talking about stuff. So the key here, Janet, is really twofold. One is that obviously you've got to take care of elderly parents. And one of the things you might think about is, okay, how can I protect my job and my income and my retirement and all that? Maybe you fund a long-term care policy, or maybe you share that cost with your siblings to care for that long-term or to pay for that long-term care policy for your parents, because that's a great way to actually achieve that. Secondly, you've got to also think about yourself and how you can deal with these costs. And as I said, the history really does show us that people who have been through a long-term care event with their parents are much more sensitive to these issues than someone who hasn't.
Yeah, we have people coming in saying we have to get coverage just because of having lived that experience themselves. One of the common questions, John, that we get that we really haven't addressed yet is, at what age do you need to get coverage in place? And there are people who say on your 60th birthday, go get coverage. That used to be kind of our rule of thumb, if you will. But I really would encourage you to start looking at it at 55. And the reason I say that is just some personal experiences that I've gone through. Had a client who was diagnosed with ALS in his late 50s. And had we looked at long-term care, as I had asked him to do earlier, we would all have a little bit more peace of mind about that. And so I would say around 55. However, that doesn't mean that if you're 65 that it's too late to get it. You still need to, I would say at 55 and beyond, look at it. There is a point where it becomes cost prohibitive due to age, but that's not like a set in stone number. So just talk with a financial advisor, get the information, and you're not under an obligation to take the coverage. But again, the point is make an intentional decision on it one way or the other.
Finding out information is never, incredibly costly. It
Right.
might be costly. What you don't know could cost you thousands and thousands of dollars later on.
But John, a 65-year-old couple retiring in 2019 can expect to spend $285,000 in health care and medical expenses throughout retirement. So that's a big number.
Absolutely. You heard the bell.
I
It is
did.
about time for our final thoughts. We don't have a third person on the show or a fourth person
We
on
might
the show
ping
today.
pong back and forth here.
We may have to talk a little while
Yeah, that's
here to
right.
wrap this
That's
up.
right.
But
That's okay.
Janet, as I think about this segment of the Get Ready for the Future show, I think about the people who really don't think about money being part of their family's life. They
Yeah.
think about it being some, quiet thing that you just kind of balance the checkbook and just keep on going. And really that amounts to sticking your head in the sand.
When we think about today's show, family values, I want you to think about how much you value your family. 2020 has been a tough year on pretty much everybody for a lot of different reasons. It has been insane this year, all the things that so many people have been going through. When you think about how much you value your family, how do you show that value monetarily? How do you show that value by getting together a plan to be intentional with your money to demonstrate your value to your family monetarily? I think that that's something where most people could take a little bit of time and make a big difference.
Absolutely. And you can do that by simply picking up the phone and giving us a call here at Gen Wealth Financial Advisors, 501-653-7355. We've got 6 offices across the state of Arkansas and Louisiana. They are in Conway, West Little Rock, Bryant, El Dorado, Hot Springs, and in Bossier City, Louisiana. I did that all off the top of my head.
There you go.
It's
Good
getting
job.
harder. Back when we were doing this show just ourselves, it was just 1 or 2 offices,
That's
and
right.
that was it. But now 6 offices across the area. We would love to see you at a Gen Wealth office near you to help you with your family values. We're back next week on the Get Ready for the Future show.
The Gen Wealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 501-653-7355. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.